Welcome in, everyone, to another episode of the Cloaks and Capes podcast. I am, of course, one of your hosts, Robbie Landis, and with me, as always, Kali Scales. And our guests today, we have two of them. From Roll D5, welcome in Aundawyn and Mika. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for thinking of us.
Absolutely. By the way, Robbie, did you all enjoy us all doing our little, dancing to the music in our head as we waited out the time there at the beginning?
No, I actually wasn't watching you because I was looking at the outline and the timer and doing my job and preparing.
Robbie, you know how I feel about you not paying attention to me.
You don't have to lie to us. You were watching.
It's okay.
Well, before we jump into what today's topic is, I actually think that normally we kind of leave this stuff till the end, but I'd actually like Mika and Aundawyn if you would tell us a little bit about Roll D5 ahead of time, as obviously you are here specifically because of the topic that we've chosen today.
Sure. I'll go ahead and go first. Obviously, I'm Aundawyn, typically going by On. All of it works. Me and Mika created Roll D5, at least during its inception. We have since changed our titles to directors because our channel has gotten so many new people that have basically created the channel into what it is today that we needed to give other people more. So we're very excited. Part of it too
was we were talking to Danielle, who's part of the team, and at one point he told me, "What does creator even mean? You can create something and then just abandon it. So what kind of title is that?" And that got me thinking, let's do something different.
Yeah, and so Roll D5 is your Twitch channel. That's Roll ROLE _D5, and you specialize in showcasing indie specifically, or just non
technically
D&D.
Yes. So our tagline that we sometimes use is we specialize in playing indie TTRPGs because there's more than 5e out there. Let us show you. So we were just doing one-shots with D&D up until the OGO shenanigans went down. And Mika had pitched the idea before, we should play more indie TTRPGs. I've got a ton of Kickstarter backlog. All of this happened, and we're this is the perfect time to shift. So we put out an announcement that said, hey, we are not playing D&D anymore. We will be playing 98% of the time indie TTRPGs. We do on occasion play D&D because there are supplements that are just too good not to showcase, and they're done by small creators. So we'd rather showcase those types of things, but it doesn't happen terribly often. It was actually really funny I think it was one of the last streams I was in. I had said, Robbie, you were also there, where I was talking about one of the games that was coming up. So I was yep, we play, we showcase indie TTRPGs. There's more than 5e out there. And one of the games we're playing later this month is 5e. And I was I'm contradicting myself, but it's fun. And
if the whole idea is to, bring attention to non-corporatized games, then because D&D is the biggest one out there, it also means that there are the most creators creating stuff for it. And if you ever do need third-party material to use, feel free to avail yourself to any of the Cloaks and Cape stuff. I think I sent you guys a link at some point just with all of our stuff. It is free for you all the time, anytime that you want. So we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, because we have one of our streams coming up that we're using D&D for a two-parter, and that actually might be cool to use. So.
Nice. Well, looking forward to
subclasses.
That. So the whole point of this podcast was that we wanted it to be able to be useful to both new players and veteran players alike. And I think to that end, you've never been playing tabletop RPGs for so long that you can't find a new one to play. So I think that this is something that everyone's going to be able to find benefit in. And, where I'd like to start then is why pick something other than D&D, right? It's so... Everyone knows about it, right? We've seen plenty of people when you're trying to explain to someone what a tabletop RPG game is, especially because of things like Stranger Things and Vox Machina. They'll go, "Oh, like D&D, it has dice, it has role playing, but some people still get an odd taste in their mouth when they use that as the comparison. So, I'd love to hear from both you. Why play something other than D&D if it's so ubiquitous in the space?
Mika, I'll let you start with that.
Sometimes it's just too complicated, and you don't want to deal with having to build a character. Character creation is the most stressful thing for me, which is one of the reasons why I prefer to GM, which sounds stupid because you have to do a lot of prep as a GM, but I don't want to worry about optimizing a character.
Oh, that's so true, though.
It's like, cool, I'm going to play a monk. Ooh, should I take the stat increase? And then that ups my AC. Hey, that's dope. Ooh, but if I take mobile, then I can punch and run. That's cool. But maybe I should take Fey Touched? Because, that will add at least 1 to my wisdom anyway. And I can Misty Step. That's cool, but then I can only do that once. And it gets very stressful.
That's fair. I think when you talk about like character creation and something like that, it is kind of those things where it's like you have your players who love character creation, right? They love getting to try to optimize their character and make them be able to do all the cool things. And then you have your players who are just like, I just want to like talk and tell stories with my friends. And I think that's one of the reasons to step away from D&D, because as good as it is as a system for some things, I'm going to go ahead and say that role-playing isn't one of its strongest suits. It's really not. There are systems that are far better for role-playing. I'm a big L5R geek, and it's got an entire array of social stats that are used for trying to do different things. Only in Legend of the Five Rings do you have to roll to convince someone that you're being sincere.
Well, and that's when it comes to mechanics backing up the role play. One of the biggest, I guess, damages. I'm not sure if that's necessarily the right way to put it, but I think one of the biggest things that D&D will do to people who have only ever played D&D is in a similar way to when we play video games and we just sort of get locked into the idea of what certain mechanics need to be, or maybe, better metaphor is when you use a controller and then you try to go to mouse and keyboard for the first time, right? It doesn't, your brain just doesn't want to make sense of it. And so I think one of the important things to do is like this idea of, Mika bringing up making characters, or Kali, being like, oh, well, D&D isn't good for roleplay. Roleplay is just pretend. So literally any system that lets you pretend is good for roleplay unless you want mechanics behind it. But if you don't want to have to worry about the mechanics of making characters and spending hours doing that, or worrying about tracking a bunch of different stats, something like Kids on Bikes and Kids on Brooms is a really, really great system that you could watch people play for maybe 30 minutes, and then a GM could easily throw you into that. And I don't think you would have any problem being able to pick that game up. What are some of your favorite sort of rules light, I think is what we would consider something like Kids on Bikes, Brooms?
Yes. So I came prepared by pulling up our list of YouTube videos because currently there's 116 VODs up there.
For Roll D5?
Yeah.
Are those all different games?
They're not all different games. There have been some two-parters, and we had a partial campaign that wasn't able to be finished.
Triangle Agency and Monster
Triangle
Elite.
Agency. We played that a lot. That was, that does have decent amount of mechanics, but Triangle Agency is really fun.
We played it so much, so I personally and the Roll D5 team are mentioned in the acknowledgements at the start of the book.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah,
that's
awesome.
Definitely like a future goal type thing, I think, for creators, is to like get mentioned or recognized by someone, some sort of hero or idol of yours.
I think there's a lot of really interesting systems out there to try. I think, I talked earlier about sometimes you play it because you want to do something differently. The other reason I think there's try different systems is for different IPs. If you're really into Game of Thrones, the Song of Ice and Fire TTRPG is pretty good, especially if you like building your house, because Session 0 is the most fun session of the Song of Ice and Fire. Or Star Wars. Star Wars has I would say 1.5 good systems based around it.
Well, and it's another great example of like the damage that the popularity of D&D can do. Is a lot of people think, oh, we love D&D, but I love Star Wars. Let's just play Star Wars in D&D, and then they try to make a Mandalorian as like a gunslinger fighter or something, and it's like there's a Star Wars
systems for that.
There is a
system
specific
out there
system
that you can go and play, or there was an actual play that was in the headlines sometime earlier this year that was a Warhammer one that they were making in 5e, and it's like, but Warhammer is already a tabletop game.
Yeah. Yes. Have you ever gotten to play End of the World? End of the World is one of my favorite systems. I've only played one game of it, but it's so cool.
Wasn't that like a Nintendo DS game or something?
I don't know, but I can tell you it's the tabletop of it is the premise is you're all sitting around playing a tabletop game, and suddenly the world starts ending, whether it's an alien invasion, zombie apocalypse.
So do you just play as yourself?
Yes, the character creation is you and your friends statting each other up, and then the first session is always the DM is killed by whatever is ending the world. So the DM player is killed by the machines uprising or the aliens invading.
Still DM, or is it a DM-less game?
No, the DM DMs, but they would have been one of the players, except they're the first one to go.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool.
For Pride last year, I did become the villain. The big reveal at the end was that I was the villain, and the players had to kill me.
Oh,
as the DM or as another player?
As the DM, as an NPC, I guess.
Okay, interesting. That's really, really cool.
I think it was for Be Gay, Do Crime, and I really like this improv game called New Choice. And so sometimes when we do one-page games, I'll say new choice and make the player make a different choice essentially. And so at the very end, I'm like, and it turns out it was me. I am the villain, Mika McIntosh, as the GM. I get to keep telling you new choice. That is my villainous power.
Oh, interesting.
Very important point of order there for anyone who didn't catch it. Mika mentioned that is a one-page game. So anyone who thinks like, I don't want to like it. It's hard. There are certain games out there. Like I get it. Okay, when it comes to playing games, I know D&D very, very well. And I played Star Wars once with Kali, and I don't know any of the rules to that, so I relied a lot on hers. I know concepts of things from Vampire, but I rely a lot on Aaron, who also doesn't really rely on the rules, so it doesn't really matter. But when it comes to learning the rules, it is a lot to expect people to learn a whole new thing, especially if you're only going to be playing it for like a session or two. But there are games out there that are just a single page. It's like, hey, let's sit down and play this as quickly as we play a board game. While it isn't one page, I was actually on one of Roll D5's one-shots called Good Soup, which the PDF is only a couple pages long, and character creation, is basically equivalent of rolling like, a handful of D12s. This is a DM-less game where you kind of just go around and collaboratively tell this story of woodland animals trying to find ingredients to throw into a soup.
Oh, good soup.
To cure an ailment that an NPC has. And it's literally just sitting there and like playing the NPCs yourself. So like this idea that all tabletop RPGs are like D&D where you have to stat out characters and have all these skills and stuff. No, in some cases, you might just have a single dice or some that don't use any dice at all.
Mika, belonging outside belonging games.
What is that?
Yeah,
say that again.
Please tell us a bit about that.
Belonging outside belonging. It's kind of a pared down, powered by the apocalypse hack where you get playbooks, but instead of rolling any dice, you rely on tokens. You've got strong moves, regular moves, and weak moves, typically. And in order to use a strong move, you have to play a weak move.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, very cool.
And so Sleepaway is a good example of that, if you've heard of Sleepaway.
I do know Sleepaway. That's actually one that we used to sell when I worked in the game store.
Why don't we then, I think this is actually a good time to sort of move into the idea of, or into the conversation of what exactly, yes?
I didn't get to fully answer the question of
Go, please.
Some favorite like systems.
In that case, then, why don't we go ahead and go around, and I would love to hear what everyone's favorite or top 2 favorite non-wizard tabletop games are.
Non-wizard, that's so funny. Now I have to have a top 2. Funny enough, I really do not like horror. I'm really bad at it. Like, especially like when it regards to like movies or TV shows, I get really scared.
Good at horror, because I feel like if you're getting scared, I don't know if I would call that
very
bad
easily
at horror.
And like it sticks with me. Like I'll have like nightmares about it, but for some reason I crave it in TTRPGs.
Did you have nightmares after Night Hag?
No, I loved Night Hag. That was one of the best games. It was so fascinating. So I really enjoy 10 Candles. That's a really, really good one. And
Tell us about 10 Candles.
So
you got to give us a little elevator pitch on all of these that you give us.
So it's a candlelit tragic horror. So basically, you have 10 candles, either literally or on a stream, if you can, and you have a scene. If I get some of these rules wrong, I apologize to anybody who's like obsessed with it. I've only played it like twice. So you get a scene, you do what you need to with all of the players, you roleplay, you have a situation, and then you go to like a candle. And depending on whose turn it is, that person can make a choice that influences the entire game. So like, for instance, I'm in a game with Mika, and Mika's character and mine get along really well, but I'm like, you know what, I have an idea. My character actually secretly did this thing that caused Mika's character's fear. And so what I say can get put into the story for the GM to work with and use and play with. And as when all the 10 candles go out, that's the end of the game, whether that means everybody dies or what somebody wants to happen at the end of the candles.
It kind of runs on almost a turn counter, but
kind of,
10 candles. Interesting.
Exactly. And then my other one is Blades in the Dark. It was one of the first games I played. And that's kind of like Victorian Gothic horror fiction. It's very dark, very gritty, and it is phenomenal. I would love to play that again. And then going back to book mentions, I actually helped with Inner Demons. It's kind of like it feels like a therapy type game.
Aren't they all?
Yeah,
Yeah, when you think about it.
I'm creating a character that actually is can swap between genders, like a shapeshifter almost. And I'm like, I'm continuously learning stuff about myself.
Oh, imagine that.
Yeah, imagine that. Hence the she-they.
Yeah, my very first D&D character ever was a Master of Disguise rogue, and he liked to disguise himself as women a lot. And maybe I needed to take something from that I didn't take.
It's like, oh, I hope this doesn't awaken something in me. So I did that, and I played a character that was a sword. And so I got character art and my character put into the book.
Oh, I love that.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so cool. That's another goal right there. Getting
Right?
a character of yours, like even just like Easter egged into a book in some way. That is super, super cool.
And it was cool because I named the character after myself. I switched the words in my name, but back then I was going by Erica, which feels like that's not my name. And so I like switched it around and it was like Iraq or something like that for the name.
Oh,
And it was
I
a
love
very
that.
complicated name because I can't even remember it. But yeah, name a character after yourself if you can get them in the book.
Hey, I stole my name from my Final Fantasy 14 character, so what are you going to do?
I stole mine from Tolkien.
Boom!
Mika, what about you? What are 2 of your favorite non-wizard games that you think people should check out?
Oh, God. I mean, obviously, Triangle Agency. Just a little blurb, Triangle Agency is a private corporation / tabletop role-playing game dedicated to understanding and containing paranormal phenomena in the world. Ooh. These phenomena are known as anomalies, and they are extremely dangerous. This game is so absurd. So you play as an agent who is actually fused with an anomaly, And to build your character, you've got your ARC, your anomaly. You choose one of the different types. Your reality, like you're overbooked, you're a romantic, and then competency, which is what you do in the agency, like you're part of the hotline, you're a gravedigger, you're a clown, you're part of HR. And together that makes up your playbook of the things you can do and things that the GM, the general manager, can use against you.
Oh, that's sick. I love that.
That's very, very cool. I like that.
Yeah. Like right now in one of the games I'm playing, my character, Lucky Lemon, is a newborn. And so one of the things that the GM can do to spend chaos is to get me to forget a simple task. So if my character's about to open a door to go and confront someone, he can spend the chaos and boom, ooh, you forgot how to open a door. Sorry. Like, you need to seek out assistance or else this isn't going to happen. And it's like, oh shit, like what if all the other agents are somewhere else or trapped, like they're tied up. I'm like, oh, I guess I don't know how to untie rope. Yeah.
Feels bad. It feels bad.
That.
And then I guess I love GM-less games. I had a really great experience playing one called Thursday. I think GM-less games in general, I think would be my top two. But one of the most fun examples would be Thursday, which is a time loop game like Groundhog Day or Russian Doll. And it's like the simplest version of a outside belonging type game that I've seen. You're not supposed to pre-plan anything. You come together. It's very much like a writer's room. You choose one of your four playbooks, and then there are 4 additional playbooks to play to help with everything. Like you can be the setting, the time loop, the home team, which is friendly NPCs, and the away team, which is the mean NPCs.
The rogues gallery.
Yeah, Good
Yes.
Soup was the first time that I had ever had any sort of experience with a GM-less game, and especially with like a new table or like new people you've never met before, it can feel a bit awkward sometimes. Knowing when to step in and when who should take the lead, but it also just leads to some moments. Kali, I know your wife has a rule as a GM of letting players sit with uncomfortable silences and not just jumping in because nobody wants to talk, so I guess I'll keep going. And in a setting where there isn't someone to take lead like that, even if like me as a GM, I had already in a few scenes kind of jumped in, and I'm like, well, I don't want to be the one who just keeps doing it. And so when someone who maybe has been like kind of hesitant or waiting finally does do it and gives themselves that permission to take control of an NPC or the scene, it can be so rewarding for everyone at the table.
It's
Definitely.
so true. And if any listeners, watchers want to know more about the games that we've mentioned, they're all on our VOD channel. Because we have this rule as well when we do live streams, like in our session 0 and even before the game, we're like, come into it, take a look at the rules, like take a look, that's fine. But if you don't, that's also okay because we're all learning it together at the same time. So during the stream, ask questions because the person who's watching either live or on YouTube is probably going to have the same questions that you are, and the more questions we ask and research it and figure it out together, the more we can help other people learn how to play the system.
That's a very good point, honestly. Yeah. Kali, what are some of your favorite non-wizard games? You mentioned L5R earlier.
Yeah, Legend of the Five Rings 4th edition for sure. If you've ever wanted to be samurais in fantasy Japan, that is Legend of the Five Rings. I mean, they call it Rokugan, but it's just fantasy Japan. It is all about samurai drama and courtly issues. It's very much about the conflict between the duty to yourself and your beliefs and that of your lord. Rokugan as itself actually did make an appearance in Oriental Adventures in like D&D 2e, and it was a lawful evil setting, because it is definitely a lawful evil setting, but it is all about the concept of fortune favors the mortal man and how it is us as people who get to make choices that change the world. And I have adopted that philosophy into all my games. I really think it's interesting. So definitely got to put L5R on there. And, the other one is more recent. Cyberpunk Red is really, really fun. But it's another game where the setting is really the star, just like with Rokugan. The Cyberpunk Red system is very crunchy, but it was really cool, and the setting really lends itself to being crunchy because it's that kind of future tech cyberpunk era. And as a DM-less game, I'm just going to give a shout out to Ironsworn really quick. I got to play my first DM-less game ever, and it was in Ironsworn, and it was super, super fun. So yeah, those are mine.
I had mentioned mine earlier in the show, the Kids on Bike, Kids on Brooms, and I think Kids with Capes. If it's not out, it's like coming out soon. I have, as a player, I love, like, I don't want to say crunchiness because I know there are games that are way, way crunchier than D&D is, but I like being able to have mastery of a system and be able to like go through and know that I'm making like a really cool, powerful / flawed character and know how those mechanics work. But as a GM over the years, I've fallen more and more in line with just wanting to be able to tell a cool story and doing cool narrative things. And the Kids on whatever it is that you're playing just focuses so much on like, look, here are your 6 dice. Now go tell the story, right?
Yeah. And
that's really kind of all it comes down to. And I don't know exactly where that game sort of sits on the idea of like, like pass and fail mechanics. But like another thing that I actually wanted to mention earlier on, we talked about the idea of like, what benefit does playing other games have? Mm-hmm. Anyone who's ever played D&D, they know that if your DM sets a DC and you fail the DC, you just failed it. Move on. And it's such a black and white way of looking at it when you have other games that can teach you things like just because you don't hit a DC doesn't mean that you can't pass something. And things can be a lot more interesting than just, well, did you solve the problem or not? What complications arose from it? How much more of a story can you tell if you did get what you want, but something else went terribly wrong, or maybe even just like a little bit wrong? And just other games can teach you so many things that even if you come back to D&D, which I think is a great like sandbox system, that it is easy to build things in. One of the things that I always get exhausted of is when I want to do something like I want to have a kaiju battle in our D&D game at some point, and people are like, it's not built for that. Go play this game instead. And it's like, why would I go and play an entirely different game for when I only need it for one session, right? Yeah. But it does still have value to go play those other games with other people occasionally and then bring the knowledge back with you that can then help you in doing what you need to in any game of your choice, whether it's D&D or not. Here's the hardest thing, I think, when it comes to new systems and new games. And this is where I'm going to need help from the two of you as well, because obviously it's something that you do constantly. How do you go about finding new games, new systems, and people to play those when everyone wants to play D&D?
Kickstarter.
Yeah, Kickstarter.
Troll Kickstarter is the answer.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened, and I just kept getting recommended things, and then before I knew it, I had like 20-something games I had backed and then just haven't played, and which was one of the reasons why before the OGL thing, I was starting to push for Roll D5 to start playing indie games. So I'm like, how else am I going to play these games that I just backed? I want to play them.
I need you guys to help me through my backlog,
basically,
please.
Yeah. And it worked out so well because other people thought the same thing. They're like, well, where else am I going to play it?
Yeah. So how do you convince, like, if you've got your people who are into D&D, is there like a pitch that you find works well for convincing them to try something else? Because there are people who, look, they've got a shelf full of D&D books that they forked over a lot of money for. They want to use them.
That's actually been a majority of what I did too, was finding, especially at the beginning, finding a lot of guests. And it honestly was not as hard as we thought it was going to be, because we basically just went to the people who we had on before so we could network and find other people. And I was just like, hey, we have this system. Here are some details. Do you maybe want to play? And 99% of the time is like, I've not heard of that, but that sounds like kind of cool. I'd love to learn. And it was as easy as that. And then as soon as we kind of got bigger on social media and we had a bigger reach, we were able to put together a like monthly, like, what is it called? It's not like a survey. It's like the Google
a digest
Folder thing we do for guesting.
Our
the form.
casting call.
Casting call. That word. We could put together a casting call, and we put it out to guests that have been on before, and then we send it out to other people or just like out onto socials. And vast majority of months, we have so many people that have applied to play the games that we have to put them on a wait list for the next month, and then they get first call on the games, and then it kind of goes down like that because we have so many people who want to play these games.
Yeah.
Because I think it started with OGL and kind of being pissed off that like things are getting exploitative and just it feels icky, and other people want to try new things.
Yeah.
And that's where we fit into that niche.
Well, I think it's like it's heartwarming, and also it gives confidence to know that like there are lots of people out there who are willing and wanting to try new things. And if you're a DM out there who's just like intimidated by the idea of asking your group, hey, I want to try and play this game, I cannot emphasize enough how important it is just to say to your group, like, I'm not talking about doing a 3-year campaign in this new system. Can we just try this system out for like 3 weeks and try a short campaign, and then if we like it, we can move into something bigger.
Or if you can even just convince them to try, like, hey, I need a break from this. Let's do something smaller, fun, doesn't require a lot of prep time. Mm-hmm. Get them used to the idea of just other games that doesn't require, as Mika had pointed out earlier, taking 2 to 3 hours to create a brand new character in something.
Yeah.
And even as a player, I bet if you were to go to your GM and say, hey, I got this game that I found, right? It's usually just made for sort of doing like, one-shots and stuff. I'd love to run a game on Monday, and then you could have like a week off to like do extra prep or something like that. 9 out of 10 times, I bet your DM's going to jump at that. And that's a good way to start sort of getting people into those as well. You don't necessarily have to abandon whatever game or long-form campaign it is that you're playing, but just try out some of this other stuff. I'd also like to point out, too, itch.io is another great place to find, non-Wizard 5e type games, too.
Mika's got some games there.
Mika's got some games there.
Well, you have one currently. My boyfriend is a cryptid needs to go up there.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking about turning that one into a belonging outside belonging system.
Ooh.
Just because, like, one of the things about belonging outside belonging too is for some of the games, it'll say like, pick your gender, but then the gender will be something like a flash of lightning in a bottle, and it's
okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I feel like when you say that, I feel like I can picture people that I would be like, yeah, that tracks.
Yeah, no. I will tell you that when you said that, someone did appear in my mind right then.
I love that.
I had a name appear. I'm like, oh yeah, okay.
There's so many cool systems out there, especially like in one of, I guess in both of Mika's games, the do Corvid. No,
be destructive.
Be destructive.
Do Corvid, be destructive.
Yeah, do Corvid, be destructive, where you roll to create your character. You don't go in and just like see the options for the characters and be like, yeah, I want to do this. I want to pair it with this and this. Or like, I think it was the same thing with Goblin with a Fat Ass. That game too.
I was just looking up so that I could credit them because it was from the creator of Lancer. I was looking up Goblin with a Fat Ass as well.
We played it and it was amazing. So like you roll for creating your character and you create this amalgamation of insanity and wildness, and it's awesome. And it's the same for the GM. You roll for the situation. You roll for the problems.
You know what?
You just do that.
Just to give a quick example of it, Kali, grab a D6. We're going to make a goblin with a fat ass for you.
Oh my gosh, yes.
All right, D6.
All right. What's your first one?
6.
All right. The rich person in question, I assume that you're going to be like robbing them or something, is a sweatshop fashion icon. Roll again.
All right. The devil does wear Prada. Got it. 2.
You are going to be robbing them in a private fortified train. Roll
train.
again.
All right, so far I'm making the underpants gnomes as far as I'm concerned. 4.
You're looking to steal from them a recipe for the secret sauce that is kept in a 300-pound safe.
That's what our game was.
Wait, really?
Was the safe?
Plankton?
Yeah.
Go ahead, keep rolling. Keep going.
Okay,
Keep doing D6s.
okay, yeah. 1.
It is protected by a cadre of numerous but poorly paid guards and bloodthirsty, goblin-hating pirate mercenaries.
Capitalism at its finest.
Yeah.
That one we had too. I have got some great clips from that because my players wanted to flirt with them, and it was amazing.
2.
And it is locked in a clockwork vault that changes shape every hour on the privately fortified train.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's gonna be a rough go of it. Now I wish Callista was here.
Roll 2d6, see how big your goblin ass is.
Mm-hmm.
Is this in inches or feet?
It's in d6s.
Fair enough. 4.
All right. Well, I got a 4 out of 12,
Yeah. 4 out of 12. It's not that.
but it is still a big ass. So let's be clear about that.
like even a 2. So it's a sliding scale.
Yeah, it's still a big ass.
It
Yeah.
is still a pretty big ass.
Right.
But that right there was campaign creation for Goblin with a big ass, basically.
Yeah.
You rolled like what 4 or 5 d6s.
5d6.
So like D&D is not the end all be all of what tabletop RPGs can be. So
Yeah.
look, I am definitely a D&D stan forever. Everything that I need is in that game, but there is value in other games, and you should absolutely look into them.
Especially because we did duo games, but before that, so like it's literally 2-player games. Before that, we did all of the Crit Award nominated solo RPGs, and I volunteered to play one because I've been doing this for playing for 6-7-ish years now. And I was like, solo RPG? That is really weird. How on earth is that supposed to work? It's just you doing this thing. To me, it just didn't make sense. So I volunteered to do one. And I ended up crying on stream because I played Chevalier. And it's you and your robot. And it's during a war. You're basically almost like a child soldier in a way. And it was one of the most rewarding experiences that I have ever had playing a TTRPG.
Oh my gosh.
Look, for any only children out there, tabletop RPGs is pretend, and we pretended all by ourselves growing up. So yeah,
there you go.
One player tabletop RPGs is a thing. Yeah.
I get so annoyed when I saw this hot take on Thread. Someone's like, it's not an actual tabletop roleplay game. You need at least 2 people. I'm like,
it's like, we just proved you wrong.
What
Here's
does
the
that
playlist.
mean? It's not natural. It's just play and pretend. Oh, that's the worst take I've ever heard.
God, people were dragging them.
I would have posted our playlist.
They doubled down.
And be like, hey, here's our playlist. We just proved you wrong.
Yeah. Well, Mika, Aundawyn, thank you so much for giving us some of your time today to come and talk about indie tabletop RPGs. It was an absolute pleasure to have you. Go ahead and take your time now to plug yourselves, let people know what you're working on, and let them know where they can find you.
Yes. Also, a quick shout out to both Mika and I. We love Roll D5 so much that we both have RD5 tattooed on our bodies.
Oh,
that we got together.
My goodness.
We
As
went and got
opposed
them
to
together.
tattooing it on somebody else's body.
All right, Robbie, I'm instituting a new policy, cloaks and capes. If you're going to work here, you got to get the cloaks and capes logo on you somewhere.
You got to do it.
We waited a year at least.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, we've only got 6 more months.
I've been doing this for, I think, 3 years.
Yeah, so what's your excuse?
Oh, yeah, where's your tattoo?
When it can start adequately paying the bills, I'll consider it.
Okay.
When it can pay for the tattoo, I will do it.
That would be nice. But yeah, anyways, my name is also known as Aundawyn, the director over at Roll D5. That's ROLE D5, but on Twitch it's _D5 because you can't have spaces. I am pretty much over there A lot. My face isn't there a whole ton because we have so many guests that I want to make sure that they shine. So I'm mostly doing tech, social media, helping to create promos. I'm working with Danielle, who's on our team, who's our lead designer. And so we work together on creating our new layouts and themed months that will be starting to come up. So I've been mostly doing that. On occasion, I'm guesting on other people's streams or podcasts, like with Aaron My Laundry playing Vampire the Masquerade. That's probably one of my favorites. But yeah, you can find me everywhere as Aundawyn. Mostly on Threads. That's my house. That's my home.
Mood.
Threads.
And Mika?
Hi, I'm Mika. I do things. I'm also a director at Roll-D5. I handle a lot of game choosing. Mm-hmm. Like, everyone pitches games and stuff, but mostly it's me. A lot of it is from my backlog, too.
Yeah.
You can catch me over on Roll-D5 a lot. Usually I'm a go-to backup player. Because, as I mentioned earlier, I don't have much of a life currently, and so I'm able to just, hey, Wednesday, I keep my Wednesdays free. Hey, I can pop in and do this just in case. You can also find me some projects I'm in. There's The Heart is a Dungeon, which is run by Rara. I'm in season 2, where we're just a bunch of fae having feelings, and I play a fae corvid named Lala Lemon, who smokes and likes to steal things.
Yes.
That's a really great name.
It's true.
And then over on Hebridean Tales, Somebody's Heroes, I play in fact, just today, my little vignette played introducing my character. I play Lemon Little Tart, who is a fairy, and in the vignette met a giant bee queen.
I'm noticing a lemon theme going on
I was going to say.
Yeah.
Gotta tell them about that.
And then in Castleton, I play Lou Le Monk, who is the lemon priest, the demigod of citrus fruit.
But of course.
Yeah. You know what? We're going to ask you once this is over what the deal is with the lemon. So if anybody wants that, head on over to Patreon to get access to the unedited, raw, uncut stuff.
What a pro plug.
Yeah.
What a
I'll also name all of the lemons I've played this year.
And real quick, before we do like the official sign off, I do want to shout out each member of Roll-D5, not only myself and Mika, but we've got our admins. We've got Sylvia and Julie, who are our admins. And then we've got Andrew, GM Justin, who their titles are narrative designer because they are mostly GMs on the channel. We've got Danielle, who is our design lead. We've got Nat20 and Nat Lee, who are both tech and artists. And then we've got Zoe, who, if you see any Roll-D5 branding, like our starting soon screen, break screen, logos, anything like that, Zoe was the one who made all of those for us. And then we've also got Aetherius, who is part of our team, who's a wonderful player, and we love our entire team. We could not do this without
Aetherius,
single
guest
one
of episode 2 of the Cloaks and Capes podcast.
Yep,
yes.
Yep, sure was. And I know that there are a few of those people that you listed as well that we have on a little list somewhere of people we want to invite to the show in the future.
Yep. They're wonderful.
Mm-hmm. As for us, if this is your first time listening for Cloaks and Capes, the podcast, obviously episode 2, is somewhat relatively new. We make content for D&D, and some of it can also be used in other tabletop RPGs as well. One of the future sort of objectives of ours is to make some more system agnostic content as well. But you can find over 720 magic items over on our Patreon. We've also nearly finished writing our 12 subclasses. You can find them as they release. Most recently, the College of Celebrations Bard and the Circle of the Green Knight Druid were put up, and we plan to very, very soon, as of when this comes out, to release a full PDF that includes all of those classes.
And the expanded Owneroxy just dropped.
That's right. Yep. So yeah, check us out on Threads at Cloaks and Capes Tabletop RPG, and of course over at Patreon as well. That's going to be it for us. Thank you again so much, Mika and Aundawyn, for giving us your time today.
Of course.
Yeah.
The Cloaks and Capes podcast is created by the support of its listeners and generous Patreon donors. Special thanks to our mythmakers and legends, Heartslot, Dolvik, Celtic Crow, Darkflux, Gamergal, Strix River, Tater Thoughts, and Capelli. Views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of its hosts. Editing and production by Aaron Pillen and music provided by Aidan Hagland. If you want to support the Cloaks and Capes podcast, check out our Patreon over at patreon.com/Cloaks and Capes. And check us out on Threads and Instagram at Cloaks and Capes TTRPG.
What's up with all the lemons?
Yeah, what's going on with the lemons?
Tell the lemons.
I just like lemons.
All right, well, that's more basic than I thought it would be. Fair enough.